Hey, it's Meg Ellefson, Drive North. Super happy to have joining me. Gosh, first state legislator in Wisconsin to join my podcast, as it should be, America's favorite legislator, Brent Jacobson. How are you?
I'm doing well. Who else would it be from the legislature to be the first on Drive
Yes.
North? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about your new gig here.
Yeah, well, thank you. Um, I've said to you many times after I left the air that I do not miss the grueling hours and all that accompanies a 5 hour a day 5 day a week radio show. So this is kind of a better gig for me, and
Hmm.
that I can really be selective about my I always could be, I suppose, but I can be even more selective because I don't have as many shows, and I love to have you join me and be the first to be on as a state legislator. So how's it going? How's the session gone? And gosh, it's 2 years has flown by, has it not?
Well, yeah, I took office January 2025, and in some respects, it feels like forever ago because of how much stuff we've been working on and how much time went into the state budget process this year. Then we got a little break, and then we were right back at it in the fall, and a very busy rapid fire finish in January and February to end our session in the assembly. So with everything we were working on, it feels like it was so long ago, but then again, to think it's only been a little over a year and how much happens and it gets packed into that time tells you how busy we really are down there.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I guess my memory is that the campaign started 2 years ago. I guess that
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
translate to being in office for 2 years, but I'm sure it feels like it. I know that that was a well, that was I'll just put it this way, it was a long summer, right?
Oh, yeah, it was a really long time, to think about when I took office in January 2025, and then I thought back as I was sitting there, wow, I was actually at this for almost a year between announcing my candidacy in February 2024 and taking office the following January. And yeah, it was a really crazy, crazy summer. And then it was even a crazier finish to the general election because I found out in the middle of the campaign that we were going to be welcoming a second child into the world after I took office. And then that happened in May of 2025, right in the middle of my first state budget process. So it's been a crazy, crazy ride. And when you start a campaign, you never know what's all going to happen in between. So um, life continues to be a mystery.
Brent, it's so hard to, or it's just hard to believe that your youngest is going to be a year in about a month then, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it is crazy to think. I ran for the state senate one time in 2022, and my daughter was, I think, 2 weeks old when I announced my candidacy for that race. And then fast forward, here we are today, 2026, and I've been through that campaign, another campaign, and two children later. And I'm your state assembly representative. So,
Well,
uh, yeah, yeah, it's very, very crazy how much life has changed since that time. And I'm very blessed to have my two beautiful children. I'm blessed to serve the almost 60 some thousand residents of the 87th Assembly District, and that covers four different counties and all the experiences I've had. And I'm blessed to be a husband now of over 10 years. So a lot of things that we can't take for granted in life. And I'm just very, very pleased.
so, I mean, when you took office a year ago, a little bit over, well, wait a second. I mean, this is well, yeah, it's over a year ago now.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
have there been any surprises that you never anticipated you would encounter in office, or has it been just kind of a gradual um, learning curve, I guess, that and now you feel like you're probably a veteran.
hmm Um, I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, to see how much great leadership we have within our caucus and how much emphasis there is on teamwork, on holding the majority, on developing young leaders. Um, you know, Speaker Voss certainly doesn't get everybody on his camp, right? He certainly has his people who dislike him, but I found Robin to be an incredible leader. He did a lot to help develop me as a new legislator, make sure I got some good legislation to work on, gave me some great assignments as a freshman. Vice chairing a committee right off the bat, chairing a very important task force, and asking me to carry, especially at the end, some important legislation. So I was pleasantly surprised at walking in as a freshman. The stereotype as well. Uh, you really don't get to make any of your own decisions. You're not going to do anything important. You need to sit down and be quiet. And that really behind closed doors is not how it is. Leadership takes freshmen into account because it took a lot of work for them to get here, and they want a future generation of leaders. So that was a very pleasant surprise coming into the process. The other bit of it shouldn't have been a surprise, but is a reality that I've had to come to appreciate. I come from a district that is probably plus 16, 17 red. So the chances of a Democrat gaining this seat are unlikely, but we will take every election and competitor seriously. However, some of my colleagues don't have that luxury, and they come from districts that may be plus Democrat, and they're able to win them because of the candidates that they are. And that means that we have to be willing at times to take tough votes, votes that we might not otherwise take, but we take them because they will protect our majority makers. And that doesn't mean we abandon our conservative values, but it means we have to take votes that that are going to help those people in those purple districts so that they can go back and campaign and try and win at the doors. And if they don't come back and we lose the majority because of that, then what was the point? Because holding the majority in one of the chambers and hopefully both of the chambers is what stops all the lunacy from the Democrats of going forward. Because if you're in the minority, your crazy legislation isn't even going to get a public hearing in a committee. If you're in the majority, the Democrats could push through their crazy ideas before the first month of the session's over with. And if you've got a Democrat governor, as we do now, to sign those bills, Wisconsin is going to look like a very different state in a very short period of time. So those were some surprises to me. The work that the compromise that has to be done to protect our majority, and then also the genuine care from leadership for our incoming freshmen to make sure they develop into good leaders.
Gosh, such a good big picture description of
Mhm.
what, really what the legislature is all about. And, you did a really, well, you described it in a very succinct way that
Mhm.
I think there are many people that never grasp that during the course
Mhm.
of their entire lives. And it's been, was one of my frustrations or sources of frustrations with those that don't understand that, just because we are in, or the 87th is a pretty red district, doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the state reflects that same constituency. And there is a strategy, and that's the part that I think many don't understand or grasp, and that I think has been, I don't know, a challenge. I think even for outgoing Speaker Voss, because
Hmm.
he was, it wasn't just about what was happening in the moment as much as it was he was looking at the bigger picture. And I mean, his voting record, his years of service and his leadership speak for themselves. So, but yeah, it will be a different legislature without him. And I guess I'm glad for you that you were
Hmm.
able to serve under his speakership, and now the baton is being passed. And I think that there are some that anticipate that his the person that succeeds him will be Tyler August, but I guess that remains to be seen once you start up this new session, and the legislature or the assembly picks a new leader.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll vote on a new leader when we come back in January, and I hope I'm back. I will be running for reelection again, and we'll see. I don't know if it'll be one or several that'll vie for the speakership. I can tell you, Brent Jacobson will not be one of them. Not that I would say no to that at some later point in my career, but being the speaker is an extremely demanding job, and it takes, I think, years and years of experience in the legislature to know what you're doing in working with all the different constituencies you have to balance, not only within your own caucus, but within the lobbying corps, to make sure that the stuff that's getting on the floor is meaningful, it's impactful, it's going to pay dividends. And you also have to, at the same time, be a master at defense, to make sure that the crazy ideas from the other party stay where they belong, which is on the shelf. And that caliber of experience doesn't come in one or two or maybe even three terms. And Speaker Voss, in my opinion, though you never know what the future will bring, in my opinion, will go down as the smartest speaker that we've ever had when it comes to um, mastering the process. I can't tell you how many times the Democrats were thought they were prepared with a shenanigan to get something through, get something on the floor, um, put pressure on our caucus. And Robin Voss was always one step ahead. And there's a lot of value in that happens behind the scenes that people just don't appreciate. So,
Yeah, well, and I think I've already used this word, but I mean, it really comes down to political instincts and acumen. And I think that's
yeah.
something that people that have either not been involved very long or don't understand the entire process, they don't realize how critical it is to have political instincts and acumen, and to be able to have negotiating skills and and strategizing skills, and those are things that not everyone is cut out to have. And I think that that's something that I think that there are those that can learn, and that's why I have hope for this leadership coming up in the next session. And I mean, I guess the other surprise for me was Kevin Peterson announcing his retirement as well. And that's a significant change in the assembly. And I don't want to say, I don't want to create any kind of hysteria, but by saying that there's a mass exodus. But I mean, there are a number of people in electeds in both the Assembly and the Senate on the Republican side that have announced their retirements. And frankly,
Mhm.
even on the state Supreme Court, we lost a good Supreme Court justice in Rebecca Bradley. So it's I mean, people make decisions, career decisions, for a myriad of reasons, but it is kind of a significant change that's going to happen now coming up in this next session with new leadership in the state assembly.
Yeah, and um, the Democrats and the liberal media like to try and spin things to say, well, the writing's on the wall for the Senate, maybe the writing's on the wall for the Assembly, that top brass is leaving. They don't want to be part of the sinking ship. That couldn't be further from the truth. You know, some of those people I've gotten to know, some I haven't, but I think that all of them had their own individual reasons for deciding that this was their time to retire. I mean, you look at Robin, he was in the building for years before he was elected as a staffer, then the longest serving speaker in history. He, publicly expressed that he'd suffered, I think, a mild heart attack at the end of last year as he was still deciding whether to run again. And he made the decision for his own sanity, I suppose, and health, that this was time to pass the torch. And Kevin Peterson's been around 20 years as well in office, and his job as Speaker pro temp is also very demanding. And the list kind of goes on. I can't speak for Senator Lemahue or some of the others. I mean, Steve Noss was there for 30 years. That's a very long time. So, everybody's got their individual reason, and they didn't all get together in a room and say, let's leave the sinking ship. That's just not, that's what Democrats would like you to think. But we're going to be okay. Like I said, we've got some fantastic people that are coming back, and I think Robin Voss, this is his legacy with the assembly, and I trust that he's not taking a bench seat in this campaign, and they're going to have to go up against his, very tenacious spirit when it comes to campaigning this year to keep the Republicans in the majority in the assembly. And I trust he's going to do that because this is the legacy he's leaving behind.
So you talked about him giving you the opportunity to serve on some committees and a task force that
Mhm.
were meaningful to you. Can you talk a little bit about both and what types of legislation that you saw over the course of this last session?
Yeah, the task force is probably the most significant. And it needs a little bit of background explanation. This last summer in 2025, and this is why every election matters. You and I have talked about that many times, and this is why our Supreme Court election coming up tomorrow, as we sit and record this, is critically important. When the liberals took back the majority on the Supreme Court in 2023, you saw them pay back their supporters and donors with decisions coming down that they were put there to make. The first one being the maps, and that cost us a number of seats and cut into our majorities in the Senate and the Assembly with the maps case that was the first filed. And then fast forward, and one thing, despite having a Democrat governor, that the Republicans were able to do to really put the brakes on the growing bureaucracy in Madison. And remember, the bureaucracy is controlled by a liberal governor because that's the executive branch. He can hire and fire anybody in the bureaucracy. And if you set the statute books next to a printout of all the administrative regulations, the statute books will be lost because the regulations compared to the statutes are astronomical. And those regulations affect our daily lives, whether you're a farmer or pick any business, and think of how regulations from DNR to licensing through safety and professional services. If you're a builder, contractor, this affects your business. It affects your bottom line, depending on how much red tape there is in Madison. The one thing the legislature could do to stop that was called the Joint Committee for Review of Administrative Rules, JCRAR. That committee, senators and assemblymen and assemblywomen, controlled by Republicans, could pull any administrative regulation and suspend it temporarily or indefinitely. And that was done from time to time with regulations that went far beyond any statutory authority that we could see. The Supreme Court this past summer declared that that process, that committee, despite the fact that it had operated under binding Supreme Court precedent for over 30 years, was suddenly unconstitutional. The Supreme Court said, well, you're taking the governor out of the equation, and we have requirements in the Constitution that both houses pass a bill and the governor signs it, and by the legislature, by committee, suspending rules, you're exceeding your constitutional authority. Well, as soon as that decision came down, the bureaucracy, which had been tempered by that committee for decades, because when that committee could pull a regulation, the bureaucracy would come negotiate with the legislature. It would involve industry so that a regulation could be tempered down and not so extreme so that it could happen. Well, the bureaucracy now saw a green light to do whatever they wanted. And an example of that is a 1,700% increase in certain fees affecting farmers with cattle. Another example of that is the commercial building code, which is being overhauled and is going to add thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to the cost of construction. And there was nothing that could be done by the legislature anymore to stop this. So the speaker came to me, being the administrative, not the administrative code expert, but I guess he thought because I was an attorney, I might know a thing or two about rules. He asked me to chair the speaker's task force on administrative rulemaking and oversight. He said, I want you to go out, I want you to hold public hearings throughout the state, and I want you to come back in January with legislation to fix this. And so I did that, and I held public hearings throughout the state. And I came back in January, and I put forth two bills. One bill is a repeal and replace of our statute, which basically we have a statute that says, well, even if the legislature didn't give the agency rulemaking authority in a particular bill, there's a statute that says the agency can write rules on basically anything within its wheelhouse. Well, I drafted legislation to repeal that and replace it with a law that says that the agency cannot write administrative regulations unless the legislature has specifically and explicitly said they can. That should make sense. That bill has been sent to the governor a couple days ago, and I expect that any minute now he'll veto that bill. So I also passed a joint resolution, and this is a constitutional amendment that would have to be passed by two legislatures back to back. It has already passed this legislature, and if it passes again next January, a year from now, Wisconsinites could be going to the polls to vote to adopt it as a constitutional amendment. And remember, in a constitutional amendment, the governor has no involvement. It has to be passed by two back-to-back legislatures and adopted by the voters. That constitutional amendment says that by a majority vote in both the Senate and the Assembly, we can suspend any administrative rule indefinitely or temporarily. So basically restoring the powers that were previously held by JCRAR so that we can get back on top of this. And I explained to Democrats, you should get on board with this, because what would happen if the shoe's on the other foot? If Tom Tiffany gets elected governor and by some chance you take back both houses, we could be in a complete reversal where you have a Republican governor and a Democrat-controlled legislature. And if that happens, wouldn't you want to be able to control some things that Tom Tiffany might want to do with his bureaucracy? We want to control things that Tony Evers is doing with his bureaucracy and we think are out of control. And it shouldn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You should be in support of some legislative oversight. No Democrat, as I recall, joined me in any of this legislation. And while some Democrats served on my task force, we had Democrats serve on the task force. I don't think after 3 public hearings, they asked more than 5 questions. I asked people that came to these public hearings one repeat question. Do you know the name of your senator and assembly representative if you're upset about something in Madison? And they could all identify that person. But when I asked them, do you know the name of the bureaucrat in Madison that wrote the regulation that you're unhappy about? Of course, none of them could identify that person. And therein lies the problem, is that you have to have accountability by your elected officials, not unaccountable bureaucrats, some of whom are in the office on average less than 2 days a week. So that was an important task force, tremendous responsibility that the speaker gave me, and I think it's going to have tremendous impact if this constitutional amendment gets passed again and adopted a year from now. I also vice chaired the Judiciary Committee. That committee is not as active as some others I serve on, like criminal justice, but it was an honor to vice chair a committee right out of the gate my freshman year. And the Judiciary Committee does get some important stuff put in front of it. And it's an opportunity to start to get your feet wet and hopefully by your second term or third term chair a committee of your own, which I certainly look forward to doing if I come back in January. So yeah, some great responsibilities my first session here. And again, as I mentioned with the speaker, the trust that he puts when he appoints people to things shouldn't go unnoticed. When I completed my task force and prepared a report for the speaker, he called me back in to his office so I could discuss my report with him. And he said, well, what do you have for me? I went through my recommendations, and he said, well, go find a senator and let's get them done. He didn't criticize any of it. He trusted that I'd put the thought and time and effort into it. And, I'm thankful for that.
That's a leader right there. Absolutely. And in addition to him being a leader himself, he sets the example for others, including yourself. Someday if we should be talking with America's favorite speaker.
Oh, Robin's going to come after you on that.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, I suppose so. Oh well. So let's talk a little bit about local, and I guess we'll go to the origin of America's favorite legislator. You started out as
Mm,
America's favorite mayor, and
mm,
mayor of Mosinee, which I would say would be my adopted city
mhm.
if we should ever move, because what's the point of living in Wausau at this, well, as you know, there's all kinds of dysfunction in our
Yes.
city government, but you led a city that in a very functional manner, and then obviously
Mhm.
when you left to run for state assembly and got elected to your position now, uh, uh, a gentleman named Pete Nowinski replaced you, and just want to take a few minutes to talk about his life and his legacy and the sad news that we heard recently about him passing, and now I guess there's a we have I you'll have to give me his, I think his first name is Tom, right? Tom
Tom
is the
Halbach,
acting,
yep.
yeah, the acting mayor, but
Mosley
talk.
Mafia member, yep.
Okay, yes, that's
Yeah,
right. That's right. And I
right.
should really get my, I didn't know if I should reveal anything like that. I didn't know if you guys revealed your last names in the mafia, but
Yeah.
you just don't reveal your true locations. But so talk a little bit about Pete, and I know that he was on the city council when you served as mayor, and the service that he provided to the city of Mosinee while you were serving, and then and once you were elected to the assembly.
Yeah, when you leave a position and you leave on a good note, as I thought I did, I thought I left the city in a really good place, a strong financial position with a bright future and a lot of great development we had accomplished in the almost 10 years I was there. Um, you'd like to have a strong successor to carry on where you left off and make sure that all the things you put into place remain there, remain looking good, remain strong. And so when Pete Nowinski announced shortly after I made it clear that I was going to be leaving a little bit early before my term expired because I was starting in the legislature, and I didn't believe even for a short time in serving at two levels of government. Pete had announced that yeah, he would run. I knew he always had at least towards my end. I know I got the sense he had an interest in the position. He was very dedicated to the city, both in and out of elected office. He had done tremendous work for our local softball association, very involved in our citizen committees before he became a city council member, and then on the city council, he had backed me on I think everything, um, but he didn't hesitate to question uh, decisions, especially budgetary decisions. He had a great background as a former county employee dealing with finances, and he was just an asset. There's plenty of people that just sit forever and ever and ever on our town boards or our county boards or city governments with no purpose except to be there. And But then you have people like Pete who are there to make a difference, make the right decisions, listen to people. Whenever there was a tough issue, and Pete was neutral going into the debate, he'd take time to go out and knock doors and talk to his constituents and make sure that he was getting feedback. And, that's the model of a local leader that you want. So it was great when he stepped up and ran for mayor. Some people in my position, uh, they're always nervous to endorse people. They're like, "Well, I don't know how this is going to turn out." Great guy, but I will sit this one out. I've never been one of those people. Sometimes I've picked the winning horse, and sometimes I pick the losing horse. But I endorse people because I believe in what they can bring to the position. So he had a contested race, but I didn't hesitate to openly endorse him, and I don't know that made a tremendous difference. Pete had a fantastic landslide victory. When I called him on election night to congratulate him, I said my only disappointment is that your victory was by a wider margin than mine when I first got elected in a contested race. And um, Pete took to the position, hit the ground running. Um, I know he was doing a tremendous job. I know he faced his own difficulties like I did when I was there. No mayor has it honky dory. There's plenty of issues that come up at the local level that aren't fun to deal with, and uh, Pete was no stranger to that, and he took them on strong. But his time in office was short. Unfortunately, Pete uh, faced some, as I understand it, some very rare and difficult medical complications that he knew the best thing for the city, and he was looking out for the city, not himself. He knew the best thing for the city was for him to take a step back, and so he left office in February, and unfortunately, it wasn't long thereafter that I got terrible news on a Friday afternoon that just last month he had passed away, and he has just a tremendous family. He has a very loving, great to talk to wife that's I know supported him in everything he did, and I will miss him dearly. Every time that you ran into him, whatever was going on with him, he always had a smile, a loud laugh, and a firm handshake, and a joke, sometimes good, sometimes bad, to tell. And that's just the kind of guy he was. And um, Mosney, I feel bad for the city because it's had to deal with a lot of tough news lately. It's Pete Nowinski's passing. we've got some bad news with the paper mill that's beyond our control. It's going to be having some substantial workforce reductions coming up. And, you feel for the community. I still live there, right? And although I'm doing a brief temporary transfer to Cronenwetter, Mosney will always be my community. And my wife and I, intend to come back soon. We're actually looking at building a home. We're moving out of our one now, but want to build on a lot we've already bought just down the street from us to make that our permanent residence. So I'm temporarily relocating to Cronenwetter so that we can do that whole construction process and sell our current place. But Mosney will always be my home. And I was born and raised there, aside from being away at school and a brief period out east when I got out of law school. Yeah, that's the place I've known. And so, you celebrate our good times and you feel bad in times like this when there's a lot going on. But I will miss Pete. My condolences are with his other friends and his family. And I think he's got a celebration of life coming up, or a funeral services. I don't know, exactly what they're calling it, but his services will be next week, and I hope that I'm able to make it. Unfortunately, Tony Evers grandstanding and a special session might have me in Madison, but that's something I don't have a choice over. So. But my prayers and my thoughts are with his family.
So if you could pick, I know it might be hard, your,
Mm,
I don't know, so far your signature legislation or something in which you are most proud. And it doesn't even
mm.
have to be, I mean, you talked about your work on a committee and a task force as well, but so far, what would you say it would be? A bill or something else?
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, but to honestly answer the question, oh, and thankfully the sun just went behind a
I
cloud.
know, I was
So
gonna say, I was gonna
yeah,
pull
if
the
it looks
shade.
like I don't know how to shave, that is not true. That's actually the sun hitting the blinds and striping my face. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
we're
was
all good.
wondering if there were bars on the window.
No, no, I'm not. We're all good. Um, to answer honestly, we had, of course, a tragic situation shortly into my first my first year with a DC Evers High School student named Braden Bone, who had taken his own life to what is called sextortion. It's um, online online scheme where typically these people prey on young children, and teenagers, they think they're communicating with somebody uh, that is an attractive young female, for instance, and really what it is, it's not. Those pictures have been extorted from some other attractive young female, and it's really not her that they're communicating with. And they make poor decisions and they end up exchanging intimate photos of themselves, and the next thing you know, um, the gig is up, and these people tell these young kids that, look, if you don't start sending money and repeatedly, we're going to release this information. You could be convicted of child pornography. You could, all your friends and family are going to know. You're going to be humiliated. And of course, young teenagers typically don't have a lot of money to work with. They think there's no way out. And Braden's story is not unique, but it's happened to dozens throughout the country in the last several years that have thought that the only way out is to take their own life. And Braden did that in a very short time. Um, Fortunately, Braden had left a message for his parents, so that they would know why this happened. And uh, Brittany's Brittany's mother and I'm sorry, Braden's mother and stepfather have been probably the biggest advocates I've ever seen in my time in elected office for change. And um, Brittany was Braden's mother, and Luke, Braden's stepfather, uh, advocated right from the get-go that something needs to change in our laws to address this growing crisis. And Pat Schneider and Pat Schneider really took the lead in working with the Attorney General's office and drafting legislation to make sextortion specifically a Class B felony in the state of Wisconsin. And a Class B felony is one of our most serious crimes. It carries up to 60 years in prison. And that legislation was passed with at rapid pace. It was first introduced in April of 2025, and it was signed into law by the governor in November of 2025. And for Madison, that is about as fast as it could possibly get. And this had broad bipartisan support. Brittany was at every committee hearing to testify. She was in the gallery when it was passed by the assembly, and she was there when it was signed by the governor. And we didn't stop there. I followed up with a bill which I understand the governor is now on his desk and could be signed this week. And that is a civil cause of action so that family members can bring a wrongful death claim against the perpetrators in civil court and seek to recover damages. And not all these cases happen overseas. Yes, some do. And in Braden's case, I believe it did. But we have a list of examples, including right here in Wisconsin, of cases of sextortion involving domestic perpetrators. So these laws will at some point have impact. So for those who say, well, they're just feel-good laws, they're not going to reach people overseas. Well, they're not going to reach people overseas, but we have domestic cases. There's additional related legislation for education, requiring education in the public schools on sextortion for students, parents, and teachers. There's legislation to add additional funding at DOJ in the Internet Crimes Against Children Division to get on top of this. So this is really becoming front and center in the legislature. And I told Brittany, I said, there's a lot of lobbyists in this building that make a lot of money. And you, as a citizen advocate, are going to pass more legislation this session than some of the lobbyists in this building. And that is why, those efforts I worked on make me so proud, because it is truly how the process should go. It's truly citizen engagement, and you'll never see a better example of it. So that's certainly my favorite, the saddest topic I think I've ever worked on. But I guess what I'm most proud of, that we were able to get things accomplished in that area.
In a bipartisan manner too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an achievement in and of itself in this
hmm
political environment that we live in. So, last topic, and then if you have anything to add in
hmm
addition to that, feel free. But state Supreme Court election is coming up
hmm
tomorrow, and
Yeah.
there may be some that view this after, but it is. Although it is not going to affect the balance of the state Supreme Court, it is still critical that, and I mean, it's rare that I come out and say ever, haha, who I support in elections, but in this case, Judge Maria Lazar, genuinely represents the majority of those in this state, and it's a really critical election.
hmm Yeah, Chris Taylor is a political hack. I mean, she just is. I mean, she was in the assembly. You can ask people who served with her. Um, Maria Lazar, I don't personally know. I haven't had any opportunity to argue in front of either of them, but I followed the race, and she clearly has the track record of somebody who should be sitting on the state Supreme Court. And, for all the polls and the pundits who've written this race off, They could be right, and tomorrow could be another example of what we saw in 2025 and 2023. But you know what? There was a lot of people, including myself, I'll admit it, who I didn't think that Brian Hagedorn was going to win in 2019 against Judge Neubauer. Now, I have not been pleased with a number of things I can list off about Brian Hagedorn's decisions. However, I would take Brian Hagedorn any day over a Chris Taylor or a Neubauer, or a number of others that I can mention. And he ended up winning that race by 5,000 votes or so. So, you can't you can't call it, I guess, until it's over. And we'll just have to see how things turn out tomorrow. I will be headed to the polls either first thing in the morning or first thing after work to cast my vote with my wife. And, we just have to pray that Wisconsinites turn out and make the right decision for the future of our state. Is it going to change the ideology of the Supreme Court? No, but it's going to be a hold, and it's going to make it possible before 2030, when the census comes back out and the maps need to be drawn again. It's going to make it possible, though a tall order, to take back the court, because in 2028, Justice Dallett, a liberal on the court, will be up. So we need to win this one. We need to win in 2028 and defend Brian Hagedorn in 2029 if he runs again. So that's a lot of work to do, but conservatives are up to the task, and the first task is to get out tomorrow and vote for Judge Lazar.
Yeah. I mean, and there's always a chance that we could have inclement weather. It's Wisconsin, but
Well, yeah, look at a couple weeks ago.
right.
Just in the last couple of weeks with 4 or 5 feet of snow, and then a storm that knocked out power in some areas last week. You never know what tomorrow's going to look like. So if you haven't voted yet, well, and that should happen, find a way to get there. But that's why I have no problem with, I like early in-person absentee, whatever the heck you call it, where you go in early and do it in person. But last week got away on me, and I was certain I was going to be in town on Tuesday to get it done. So I'm going to be doing that tomorrow.
Yeah, plan accordingly. You got the whole day.
Mhm.
Polls are open from
Yep.
7 a.m. until 8 p.m. So there should be no reason why, if you can get to the polls. If you can't, if you don't have a ride, find someone that can help, a neighbor, a friend, someone at your
Mhm.
church, someone at work, etc. So it's all possible. Anything else you want to add before I let you go? America's favorite
Nothing,
legislator.
nothing I can think of, Meg. We covered a lot of great stuff. I'm so excited about this drive north. And, on my long rides to Madison, I catch up on your newest podcasts. So it's just a pleasure to hear your voice again
Oh,
behind a
thank
microphone. And because you actually, you get out and you interview people and you ask the tough questions. I've listened to your interview with Kevin Hermany, and a friend of mine who I'm supporting for Congress. And um, you asked some pretty in-depth questions, especially on foreign policy, and he handled them tremendously, as I knew he would.
you.
But that's why I appreciate your voice behind the microphone, and I want to encourage anybody that listens to this to spread the word about Drive North.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Well, get out there and enjoy that sun before you get a burn. It's like a
I'm
weird,
getting burnt
like,
through the window, but yeah,
right? Yeah, that it would just be a really strange look. But
yeah.
all my best to the family. Hug those sweet kids, and I look forward to catching up with you. And I know you're going to win your reelection, but we can't take
Yeah.
anything for granted. And I'll be around to help you prevail when that election comes closer.
Well, thank you so much, Meg. Well, have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye, Brent.